Hello, like, sub, and do the usual. I'm excited. We have a release window for Rings of Power Season 2, and I cannot wait. I loved the first season. We're looking at summer. Thank you, Matt Smith. This year, so around August, maybe. I think that's a rough guesstimate for the release, and I'm looking forward to it. It's interesting that this show, I didn't go into season 1 with high hopes. I expected to hate it because we know how Game of Thrones ended, and I will say I didn't actually mind the ending, it just felt incomplete. And that's the only way I can describe it. It felt like we were missing 5 episodes to get to this point. It was really rushed, and that's what frustrated me with it more than anything. I had a feeling I know how it would end, but it felt rushed to that conclusion. It was ridiculous. But this, I sat down, I love the cast, I think the cast are fantastic. I think I think the acting, the cast, Matt Smith took me a little time. If you go back to my earlier videos, I wasn't so keen on him in the beginning, and then as the series went on, it just grew on me. When he's good, and this series shows it. Like, this is a phenomenal show, and it definitely deserves its place as, it's a huge peak. And in the big scheme of things, its viewership alone, it was the most pirated series of 22, which was ahead of Rings of Power. And we're going to get to that point here. There was a lot of comparison between Rings of Power, and I think a lot of the head-to-head conflict was manufactured by media and press. Ironically, this show, and I'm using Wikipedia as a source here, financially the budget for Rings of Power was almost 450 million more than House of the Dragon. Both series fared successfully in ratings. And yes, Rings of Power did have the highest opening of the 2 episodes. Rings of Power, the House of the Dragon took a little bit more time, but that seems to have grown and the viewership was consistent. And then now the drop in Rings of Power viewership is quite obvious because only a small percentage of people actually continued watching the series from start to finish, where this is definitely the stream and the TV repeats have done very well. And House of the Dragon, its viewership increased where Rings of Power went down. I think a lot of interest with these shows because basically the Rings of Power dropped sharply after the first 2 weeks, and then House of the Dragon took its place. I find it interesting that it's such a good show. It's got less budget than Rings of Power, but it looks so much better. Not just in terms of casting, acting, and performance, but visually, the costumes look better, the set pieces look better, the overall show feels more expensive and less cheap. And I don't know what witchcraft they're pulling, but I love it. And I literally have spent... I love this world. I have a odd feeling, I've talked about this before, we're never going to get the final books in the Game of Thrones. I will be definitely interesting to see if that ever happens. And I do agree with some of the criticism. Some of the time jumps are a little bit off. The pacing was off here and there, especially in the first few episodes of House of the Dragon. And I will say, it's a very dark show. Like it was Star Trek Picard Black, in some scenes, which does get a little bit annoying. Light some candles, give it some ambience. Just something so I can actually see the actors. I really had to play with the settings on my TV sometimes. But I absolutely love this series and I will wax lyrical about it. The fall of the House of Targaryen, the decline of it, and the War of Successions, the Dance of the Dragons. It's a phenomenal series and it really does show. And there is no way around that. You have great characters, you have good writing, you have strong writing, you have scenes which you sit there in the tenterhooks listening to them speak, and it's quite slow in some places, but I like that in a lot of it because you really get to know these characters. And I could just do a 2-hour video of me singing about this television show and loving everything of the show. And I think the casting works. Those actors are brilliant. And I just love this world. I like Westeros. I like the mix of low and high fantasy, and it's very obvious that once you hit the Game of Thrones, there's very much a moment of decline, and you see that. And I will say, I do love the design of the slight redesign of the Iron Throne itself. It matches the description in the books more. It's still nowhere as big, but I did like that. And I think the only way I can describe it is it's very rare a TV show grabs me, and fantasy on television in recent years has been extremely weak. There's been a lot of bad fantasy. Rings of Power is a prime example. The Witcher went downhill after season 1, and Willow and things like that, and the Wheel of Time. I think this is the thing. Good fantasy is hard to come by, and when you have something like this that is gritting and will pull you in, and you love those characters and just love the world. I could wax lyrical about this show for hours, and I keep saying that, but I really could. And just overall, a stunning series. And season 2, I think, will grow. I think it will be even better. I don't want to give anything away, and going by these leaks and little trickles of information got me very, very curious. So tell me what you think in the comments below. I will talk to you guys later. Let's have a wonderful day.